An arrow shoots past your head as you draw your long sword and charge forward at the bandit archers. Off to the left, an ogre swings its great club in a wide arc, slamming into an ally. On your right, two bandits draw weapons as one of them takes an arrow to the knee. Just beyond, you see Glassstaff, the evil wizard who betrayed you, as he fires magic missiles into the rest of your party. One of your allies falls to the floor. Your eyes narrow and time slows to a crawl as you hear these words. It's your turn. What do you do? For players with a limited background in tactical strategy games, they usually catch on to the role-playing aspect of D&D very quickly, but combat is a common stumbling block for them. As a dungeon master and former teacher, I've taught a lot of new players how to play D&D, including half of my current party, and over the years, I've noticed this trend in players and dungeon masters alike. The you can do whatever you want open-endedness of D&D's combat system is liberating on one hand, but on the other, also leads to analysis paralysis for both players and dungeon masters. You have so many options that it can be difficult to discern what the right thing to do actually is. The worst part about this paralysis is that not only does it lock up the part of your brain that identifies correct choices, it overloads the part of your brain that would be making the creative, outside-the-box choices that D&D is known for. By the end of this video, we'll demystify the chaos of combat. Whether you're a DM or a player, you'll be able to look at a battlefield covered in options, but you'll be equipped with the tools to identify the statistically correct target, because there is one. And this knowledge will free up your brain to make other, more creative choices that make the game fun. My name is Sam, and I've taught over 100 new players how to tell their stories using my favorite game in the world, Dungeons & Dragons. This is Tabletop University. In my first campaign ever, my brother played a rogue who was a thief, but not in the traditional sense. Sure, he stole the odd jewelry or magic item here or there, but he was known for stealing kills. His whole bit was that he was tallying the amount of kills he had in order to gain entrance to an exclusive crime syndicate. Other players would even tell him, go for the boss, or target the wizard, and he'd, in character, tell them, talk to me when he's bloodied. After years of this campaign and countless battles, I eventually came to a realization. In the encounters where he was able to do this bit, they would win easily, even if other members of the party went down. In fights where my brother's rogue went down early, they struggled. His character was the swing player in most combats. The odds of success or failure rose and fell with him. Yes, partially because he was a rogue and they do a lot of damage, but also because his choice to commit to this bit unknowingly exploited a rule that the foundation of D&D's combat is built off of. The best thing you can do on your turn is remove an adversary from the battlefield. This seems obvious when you hear it, but to truly understand the impact that this has, we need to break down something called the action economy. Understanding the action economy in Dungeons & Dragons is essential to making choices in combat, but in order to keep this video at a manageable length, I'm going to try to keep this as short as I can. Simply put, it's the amount of actions one side has versus the amount of actions of the other. It's best explained with an example. If there are 4 player characters, each with 1 action on their turn, and 4 enemies with 1 action on each of their turns, the action economy is balanced. Because PCs are usually more powerful than the average foe they face, a balanced action economy usually tilts in the PC's favor. However, as soon as one side begins to lose actions by any means, their danger of losing the encounter skyrockets. Obviously, everything I say here will vary greatly depending on party composition, enemy challenge rating, magic items, and a lot of other factors, but the power of the action economy still matters in any circumstance. It's why 4 goblins are way more dangerous than 1 bugbear, even though their total challenge rating is the same. The goblins as a group have 4 times as many attacks. They're more likely to hit and more likely to crit. If you want a way to make bugbears really scary on their own, I made a whole video about that already. It's available on my channel. If a player loses their action before they ever get to act, and then another player is forced to use their action to save the first, all of a sudden they're working with half the actions they should have had, and it creates a vicious cycle that is incredibly difficult to come back from. It's what we call a death spiral, and it can lead to a dreaded total party kill, or TPK. The point being, actions are the currency with which we measure the likelihood of success. Here's what you need to understand in order to make the most of them. First, limit partial turns. Each PC or creature has an action, a bonus action, a free action, and a reaction every round. Many new players will find themselves missing out on the majority of possible actions you can take on a turn, content to take their action, maybe move, and they're done. Don't fall into this trap. Familiarize yourself with the available reactions, bonus actions, and free actions available to you in order to maximize your individual action economy. Basically, just know your character sheet and try to use the maximum amount of actions every round. Second, actions only count if they're meaningful. A bonus action to make your Cloak of Billowing wave dramatically is technically an action, but not one that matters in combat. It's why Healing Word is usually selected over Cure Wounds for a level 1 healing spell, even though it doesn't heal as much. It adds a bonus action without sacrificing your actual action to heal your allies. Number 3, some actions are worth more than others. A level 5 fighter makes 2 attacks as 1 action, so their attack action is more valuable than a level 5 druid's who only attacks once. A wizard's fireball spell can potentially affect way more than 2 enemies if they're foolish enough to be close together. Number 4, I already mentioned reactions, but you really need to understand attacks of opportunity. Plan to avoid or exploit them depending on your build. Essentially, if you're in melee range and an enemy tries to leave, you get a free attack as they run away. Opportunity attacks alone can potentially double your action economy, and the more actions you have, the more chances you have to take out an enemy, leaving them with less actions to take you out. Now that we understand the value of an action, how do we know who to direct our action at? There is a calculus you can make at the table, one that many players with a background in tactical strategy games are probably already doing, either consciously or unconsciously. They weren't ever taught this, it just comes from years or decades of experience in the genre. This was made very clear to me when I played Baldur's Gate 3 with my wife, who was pretty new to tactical games and D&D as well. When we were in combat, I found myself sometimes confused about who she was targeting with her spells and attacks. In situations where there may be 10 to 15 options on the board, sometimes she would just ask me, how do you know who to attack? This simple question opened my eyes to the fact that new D&D players and DMs probably don't know who to attack in most situations, so they end up spending most of their turn racking their brains for a simple solution, which leaves the brain too occupied to come up with creative ideas. And if you're new, it's a lot of pressure. You're probably not used to having the lives of your character and of your friends' characters in your hands. Now, don't get me wrong, this is the point. A massive part of what makes this game so fun is being able to navigate these really stressful scenarios and have the opportunity to make heroic choices without the associated consequences affecting our real lives. That's why we play. But I have heard from lots of new players, I just don't know what to do. Is there not like a default thing for me to do on my turn that won't have the rest of my party looking at me like I'm a liability? I don't want to be a liability. And to that I say there is a correct answer. Follow the action economy to your target. A successful turn in combat means you output damage. A highly successful turn is when you get a kill, removing a potential action from the game. So who do we target? And how do we know who belongs at the top of our list? Let's examine our situation from the beginning of the video, but now allowing our knowledge of the action economy to guide our decision making. 1 ogre, 2 archers, 2 swordsmen, and 1 backstabbing wizard. As a longsword wielding fighter, we're deadly with a blade, so let's use that to remove some actions from our enemies. Who do we think has the most powerful actions here? Probably one of these two. Both are decent targets, but both have issues. Take our ogre, for example. He's a big guy, probably easy to hit, also clearly dangerous. But combat just started, and we don't just want to do damage, we want to remove actions from the board. Odds of you killing this guy on this turn? Not great. Our wizard, on the other hand, is clearly very dangerous, but far away, also smaller, so harder to hit. And the last thing we want to do on our turn is miss. It's like throwing an action away. There's also a magic user who likely has some spells with a decent sized area effect, so our party can actually mitigate some of his action potential by just adding space between ourselves and our allies before his next turn. Now our list of potential targets looks a lot different. 4 bandits, probably identical stat blocks, so equal chance to hit. But what other info do we have? If you were paying attention, you'll remember that the archers just fired. They already used their action this round and missed, which means they may not be too skilled. Killing them now would be fine, but our swordsmen, they haven't gone yet. If we kill one of them, we can remove an action before it's ever used. This is the difference between a highly successful turn and an optimal turn. A kill before an enemy has a chance to do anything? It's like they never existed. If your DM chooses to display the initiative order openly, keep this in mind. If they don't, pay attention and feel free to write it down as it's revealed, because anyone going after you is about to use their action if you don't kill them first. And then there were two. No discernible differences, both great options, except, oh yeah.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
How do you know how much damage they've taken? Ask. Your DM might tell you that a creature is bloody. This is a mechanical term for having lost half their health. If you hear the words last legs or on death's door, it's not glamorous, but one dead bandit means one less action, one less potential day-ruining critical hit. The scales of fate immediately tilt in your favor. Time to steal a kill. This is why my brother's rogue was such a valuable piece to his party. He was so efficient at removing my actions from the board. If you honestly don't know what to do in an encounter, this is a fantastic place to start until other options make themselves available to you. Each moment in combat gives you more information about your opponents, so allow new data to influence where you take aim. First, don't be afraid to communicate on the battlefield. Remind your party members which creatures you already did damage to, so they know if they have a potential kill on the table. Consider armor class. Pay attention to which attacks miss or hit a creature. If a 23 misses on a wizard, maybe don't waste your action attacking him this round. If you notice that an enemy has multiple attacks on its turn or is attacking with advantage, move them up a few spots on the list, because multi-attack is basically worth an extra action, and advantage gives them a much better chance to score a crit on you or your ally, and nothing ruins an encounter quicker. If a boss has legendary actions, meaning they get to take actions on your turn, move them way higher on the list, as killing them can eliminate the potential for way more actions. Swing creatures, like the rogue, exist on both sides of the encounter. This isn't a hard rule, but there will be instances when you should target the boss early on and go all out. If they have a buff that helps all their minions, or if they're like a glass cannon, meaning a creature with high damage or low HP. Don't be afraid to ask the DM about details of what an enemy looks like. It may not always be obvious, but they may say that the wizard looks like a stiff breeze may blow them over. Hi, Editing Sam here. I noticed that although I gave you a bunch of stuff to look for as far as identifying your target in the video, I never gave you like a weight to it at all. So I made this focus matrix thing, which I'll put up on the screen now. Essentially, I'm just trying to assign point values to it for those of you who want a bit of a less subjective method for identifying your targets. Again, all these point values that are on the screen right now, that is just my thoughts. If you think that an area of effect spell is a +4 and that's like your main priority, give that point value to it and attack that guy. My impulse for this was to make another one of those handouts like I did with the combat options menu, but I really want to get this video out as soon as possible, and that takes a little bit of extra time to make, so I just made it really quickly. It's nothing impressive, but if you want to take a screenshot of it or write it down in your notebook, that's great. Also, there is a caveat here. Everything on this list does matter, but there is no list that's going to be all-encompassing because every encounter is different. So I did my best to keep it as general as possible so that it'll apply to every encounter, but there may be a situation in the encounter that you happen to be in right now that trumps every single one of these points, and you should go for that one person. This is just things to watch for that has helped me and my players. Honestly, if you still don't know, even after looking at all this, who to attack in combat, don't be afraid to ask for help from your actual party members. Just try to do this before your actual turn starts so that you have a plan going in. It's gonna make it a lot easier to be creative in the moment. All right, sorry for the interruption, back to the video. When you're playing a character who's supposed to be inexperienced, there can be a hesitancy to fight optimally. The farmhand who's just picked up her father's sword probably wouldn't tactically prioritize action economy. But just because you lack experience doesn't mean you can't have good instincts. You don't have to choose between playing smart and playing in character. The best players find the justification that makes both true simultaneously. Our farmhand may be so scared of the ogre and the wizard that she goes for what looks like a more manageable enemy. My brother's rogue would have gone for the same target, but for a completely different reason. Both would have helped their party. When either breaks from that pattern to go after someone significant, it only adds to the story because now they're being driven by emotion, ignoring tactics, and there's a new calculus that takes place. Knowing the correct target in D&D isn't a rule, but it's a good option. Ideally, once you have a default target identified, it will free up your mental cogs to go to work on something else, identifying outside-the-box tactics and narrative opportunities to exploit. It's no longer, I don't know what to do, so let me try something random. It becomes, I know what the correct answer is, but I'm willing to take the risk on something else because I, or my character, believes the risk is worth it. After my wife caught on to the idea of action economy and realized who her default target should be, I noticed that she was able to be a lot more creative in her tactics, trying new things, unorthodox spells, and experimenting with different solutions, which taught me something. Removing obstacles to a default action frees up your brain to get creative in combat. Many newer players spend their round in a state of mental fog, which makes acting efficiently a challenge and being creative a near impossibility. A default target at the top of your list allows you to spend the time leading up to your turn brainstorming other creative in-character solutions, because you know that if you don't come up with something, you have a really good option to fall back on. Keep in mind, D&D is a game about stories. Characters in stories don't always make the right decisions, and that's okay. Fear of failure is a real obstacle for a lot of new players who are used to winning being the point of game night. Don't let that keep you from making suboptimal choices in a moment that feels right for your character's story, and at the end of the day, that story is all that matters. For players and dungeon masters alike, combat doesn't have to be intimidating, it can be really fun. If you have any other combat tips for players or DMs, share them with the class in comments down below, and hopefully that will serve as yet another resource for new players and DMs, so combat can be freeing and fun for everyone. Just based on the type of people who've typically volunteered to DM, myself being one, you likely have a better grasp on the action economy than some of your players do. And you should use this in the right context. Intelligent creatures should act with intelligence, targeting weaker players or players who look like they're close to death. There's nothing wrong with this. When a player is making death saves though, it becomes much more of a gray area. Unless you're playing a bad guy that is particularly vicious, you should not be attacking downed players going for the kill. You should be trying to down them all in an effort to win the fight and then, just kill them at the end. That being said, if you do your due diligence and tell the players ahead of time that this particular villain is known for being so savage and psychotic, then you kind of owe it to them to finish the job. Players don't always take the first hint though, so have multiple NPCs blatantly warn them to make sure they know who they're dealing with. Non-intelligent creatures, like animals, can't tell the difference between a healthy warrior and a healthy wizard. If they're hunting for food, they will attack either something big and slow, if they're in a pack, or something small and weak, if they're hunting solo. And that's all I got. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of the video. And if you made it this far, but you're not subscribed yet, click the bell, like the video, all that stuff. Okay, he's done. This has been Tabletop University. This has been Frodo. I've been Sam. Thank you for watching.